Good morning. I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the New York State Urban Development Corporation doing business as Empire State Development for Thursday, July 15th, 2021. Before we begin with the business of today's meeting, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone here today back to our in-person meetings. This has been an extraordinary time for, I think, all of us. I would be foolish and remiss if I didn't note that the work of this agency not only continued during the crisis, but was actually critical to the continued and proper functioning of the state and the businesses of the state under the leadership of Eric Gertler, and throughout the state, throughout all the offices. It has really been an extraordinary effort. And one of the oddities for me was by the time I came on board, we were in the midst of the COVID crisis, and as a result, although I have been chairing these meetings for not quite a year, this is the first time that I am gathering with this board. And so for me, this is an extraordinary meeting, both because I'm able to see and be with everyone in person, also because I'm able to welcome our newest board member, Sherry Gleed, who has joined us, which is a great addition to an august board. Michael Rosen, who has also joined us, could not be here today, but will be here next month. And there's a bittersweet quality to this as well, because although Eric Gertler will remain on the board and will remain a critical member of this administration and of the operation of ESD, he is stepping down as the president and CEO in a matter of days, if I'm not mistaken. And this will be Eric's last meeting in that capacity. And as a result, we will, for the last time, unless I'm able to twist his arm, which I will try to do, this is the last time that we are going to be blessed with a president's report from Eric. So it really is, a point that is worthy of stopping and pausing and just being thankful for what we have and what the future will be, which I happen to think is going to be extraordinary, because we will come back stronger, and this agency in particular, I think, will be critical to not just rebuilding the economy in this state, but ensuring that the growth is beyond what we've seen previously. And it's really largely due to the extraordinary work of the folks in this agency and the leadership of Eric and Howard Zemsky before him. So thank you all. I'd like to ask staff members now who are joining us remotely to please mute your audio until you are ready to speak, and unmute your audio when you are speaking. I will also ask anyone who is speaking and coming in remotely, I'll remind you to please let us know who you are, because recognizing your voices is a difficult task. So please remember to do that. I'd like to note that the public was given the opportunity to attend today's meeting to provide comments on the agenda items. I'd like to state for the record that we do not have any members of the public in attendance today. We welcome you all in the future, but today it is just the folks associated with ESD. As always, the directors have received the written materials in advance of today's meetings and are free to ask questions at any time during the presentations. At this time, I will ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any item on the agenda. If so, I will ask you to please make an appropriate disclosure on the record, and we will then remind you to recuse yourself from any disclosure or vote with regard to such items. Any conflicts?
I'm going to recuse myself on the Biodefense Commercialization Fund.
Okay.
Because of the relationship with Columbia.
I will make sure that...
I probably should too.
So our GC, Liz Fine, I notice, is nodding, indicating that she will remind both of our board members, Eric Gertler and Sherry Gleed, that at the appropriate time that they will not vote and they will be recused from that particular vote. And I'm assuming that does not present any kind of problem in terms of a quorum so that we can go forward with the item. Great. So with that notion, I will turn to the approval of the minutes of the May 2021 Directors Meeting. I'll ask if anyone has any questions, comments, additions, or deletions to those minutes. And if not, I will ask that we take a vote with respect to those. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposition? The minutes are approved. Hilda is looking at me longingly because I did not ask for a motion or a second. And it's a curious thing, I
Oh, I said, no, you'll wait.
I try to mix it up. I think it's Thoreau, Sherry will correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's Thoreau who said, question everything. No, I'm sorry, it's Walt Whitman, said question everything. And I'm on a number of boards and have been on boards for years, and we always have this process, which I'm assuming began with Robert's Rules of Order. And during COVID, because, what are you going to do? I ordered a copy of Robert's Rules of Order. And they're dizzying in their complexity. And so, confronting that and realizing we have this kind of watered-down version of Robert's Rules of Order, I called our general counsel, actually yesterday, and I said, is there any particular reason why we do it this way, where you call for a motion, ask for a second? And she did some intensive research and said, no, that's just how we do it. And I said, well, what if I just asked for a vote? And she said, yeah, you can do that. And so I figured it would run a little smoother, and we would probably save the time that I'm wasting by my giving the explanation of how I got to where I am, if we simply called on people for a vote. And I'm going to make it my business at every board I'm on and participate in to ask this same question. I'm trying to bring us into the modern era. It was this instinct that when I was a prosecutor led me to question, why do all my briefs begin, comes now the U.S. attorney through his assistant, Stephen M. Cohen? And somebody said, that's just how we've been writing them for 150 years. And we stopped. So we will just ask for votes. With that in mind, I'd like to ask, now that we've approved the minutes, we I think, turn to the temporary assignment of signatory authority for the President and Chief Executive Officer to certain ESD officers. What's going on is, with Eric's departure, or imminent departure, assuming he does leave, and I'm still hoping that he doesn't, but were he to leave, with the absence of someone in his position, we need to delegate authority for certain aspects in business related to the agency. I think the idea, and it's a very short period of time, Pat Foy will be coming on as the interim or acting CEO and president. He is currently slated to start in September, although I'm trying to keep Eric longer and bring Pat sooner, so I'm trying to close that gap. But in the interim, we do need to designate signatory authorities for certain functions. I thought the best way to do that, after speaking to Eric and speaking to the senior executives here, is to designate two people, just as a matter of expediency. It's not that both would need to approve something, but either could. We have a geographic divide, New York and Albany, and also, given it's the summer, you just never know what vacation schedules are. So I've spoken to Kevin Eunice, our COO, and I've spoken to Liz Fine, and I believe that they are going to share those functions. Liz, is there anything else I need to know, or Kevin, anything else I need to know?
We've asked, in the resolution for the authority until the end of the year, or until there's a new president, CEO, whichever is sooner.
Makes sense.
Anything we need to do other than to take a vote on that item?
I don't believe so.
So, without asking for a motion or looking for a second, I will turn to the vote. All in favor of the delegation?
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries, and we have our delegation. I will now ask Ed Hamilton, who is, if I'm not mistaken, and if my eyes do not deceive me, is not in the room, so he will be available by audio to present an item relating to the appointment of an officer of the corporation. Ed, if you begin speaking now, you don't need to identify yourself.
Well, thank you, Steve, and good morning to the directors, and thank you for the introduction. The directors requested to approve the appointment of Matthew Bray to the office of Treasurer effective June 28th, 2021. As the treasurer, Mr. Bray will have the responsibility for managing the corporation's treasury operations, including cash investments, debt management, and debt issuance. There's details of Mr. Bray's experience in the board materials, but I did just want to highlight that he has worked for 20 years in the areas of treasury operations, cash management, bank relations, debt issuance, and risk management. He has a degree in electrical engineering from Cornell and an MBA from Columbia University. And we did also ask Mr. Bray is on the phone if anyone has any questions of him. Thank you very much.
The only question I have is how do we get you some kind of affiliation with NYU? And putting that aside, I have no questions. I did that for the benefit of Sherry.
Matthew, we look forward to having you on board, and we're excited to get you here as quickly as possible.
If there are no further questions or comments, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the resolution carries. And I thank you both. Welcome, and thank you, Ed. We now turn to Maria Mitchell, who will present an item related to ESD's Life Science Initiative. If my memory serves me correctly, Maria spoke with us last month about a portion of this initiative and is now, I think, ready to bring something before us that is ready for action. So, Maria, are you there?
I am here. Good morning.
All yours.
Okay, thanks. Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everybody. Yes, just to refresh your recollection, with last month we approved the single source contract with Columbia to manage the program that we're bringing guidelines forth today. We are asking the board for approval of the guidelines and regulations for a new $40 million biodefense commercialization fund, which is a component of the life science program. For those of you who are new to the board or others, you might recall that the life science program was authorized by the legislature in April of 2017 and was created to spur the commercialization of a world-class life science research cluster in New York. And that legislation does require that guidelines and regulations be promulgated for any new grant program that falls within the initiative. So today's program that we're asking for approval is a biodefense fund developed to continue with the expansion of the life science ecosystem and accelerate the growth of companies in New York, with a focus on those companies addressing serious infectious disease threats such as COVID-19 and its variants. And this fund was announced as part of Governor Cuomo's FY22 budget announcement. The fund will be managed, as I said, the day-to-day administration will be managed by Columbia Technology Ventures. There will be an executive committee that will provide guidance on the shaping, implementation, and ongoing work of the fund. There will be an expert review panel to evaluate and provide recommendations to ESD on the applications submitted, in addition to serving as mentors to the selected grant recipients. Applications will be reviewed twice yearly, and for companies will range from $1 million to $4 million, and for academic institutions, they will be from $250,000 to $500,000. I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a lot of detail to the program. Obviously, would also like to note that we have not put together the expert review panel, which will be made up of seasoned biopharma industry experts and venture capital experts in the life sciences. And if any directors have recommendations, I'm happy to look at those recommendations and bring them to the executive committee as well. So happy to answer any questions. Thanks very much.
Maria, when is it that you need to have that panel in place?
Well, we need to have it in place in September. Right now, we are anticipating a September 8th announcement of the application to be live and accepting applications. So certainly by that time, we will need, or within a week of that, we'll need to have them in place once the applications start coming in.
So I'll just, state the obvious, which is if anybody has any recommendations or thoughts, we should get them to Maria as soon as possible. And I think it is, this is one of those areas where and I can only speak from my own perspective, where the board's value is putting the panel together. And once the panel takes over, my view is that the board is really engaged in a delegation to experts who really know an area, and that to the extent we're involved at that point, it really is sort of in a very high-level supervisory process with respect to the overall program, as opposed to the individual decisions with respect to the grants, not unlike the New York Venture Fund. And so,
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah. Ask away.
No, is it like a capital venture fund?
Maria, you want to explain the comparison, because I think it is
Sure.
an apt one.
Absolutely. The fund is actually a grant fund, but will operate similar to a venture fund. It was modeled loosely on the SBIR program, but we actually will ask them for warrants if appropriate. But other than that, it is not a venture fund. It'll function like a grant program.
Right, and the one thing I'd add from the board's perspective, because, I do spend a lot of time, probably more time than people wish I did, thinking about what is the role of the board, what are our fiduciary duties. And this, I think, is a great example of an instance in which we're exercising our fiduciary duties by approving the parameters of a program based upon the recommendation from senior staff members, in this instance, Maria, and then approving a panel of experts. And then my view is at that point we've acquitted our responsibility, other than to sort of monitor from time to time that they're staying within the program's criteria. And so, it's one of the instances in which I actually feel a sense of relief, because I can only speak for myself. I have no expertise in this area, and I'm happy to rely upon others who do. Maria, anything further? I guess we have to take a vote.
Nothing further. I just to say it's really exciting, and we've been working on this for close to a year, and I'm very excited to be not only growing the life science industry, but obviously addressing a very serious threat to all of us. So very happy to be here talking about this program today.
So I guess we are voting, unless Liz corrects me, on the promulgation of rules and regulations related to the program. And that being so, yeah, Liz?
And we have 2 recusals.
And we have, that's right, because of the involvement of Columbia and the relationship of Eric and Sherry to Columbia, they're recused. Otherwise, I will call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? It carries. Maria, we look forward to being kept informed of how this process plays out. This is, an extremely exciting opportunity, and thank you and your team for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
We now turn to what I
Thanks.
hope will not be the last, but I am going to, with a tip of the hat, acknowledge that it may be the last report that we receive from Eric Gertler. I've spoken about Eric before. Now that we are here in person, I feel that it's always better to deliver these kind of comments personally, so I'm going to repeat some of the things I said at the last board meeting. Eric is a truly extraordinary public servant. Eric had the kind of career and has had the kind of career that he did not need ESD. ESD needed him, but he did not need this. And this was a true act of both civic responsibility on his part, and in a sense that there was really more that he had to give. And then, having volunteered, the world fell apart. And he stepped up in a way that no one could have ever expected, and delivering a kind of value and kind of leadership that really made a huge difference and has gotten New York and the New York economy to a place where it is really going to recover and it's going to rebound and it's going to be extraordinary. And people tend to forget, coming out of the crisis, what it is that happened during the crisis that allowed us to feel a sense of optimism. And as far as ESD is concerned, what happened was Eric Gertler. And great work by the senior staff, great work by everybody who has had a role, but it was the leadership of Eric, I believe, that was the intangible that made this all as successful a run through a crisis as it could have been. I mean, he is the Reggie Jackson to this New York Yankees. He is the straw that mixes the drink. I'm delighted that even if he is leaving this particular position, I'm dating myself, but it's the right analogy. And I know he's going to stand out. Look, I do harbor some hope that, you know, in my youth and through my middle years, there have been rock bands that are perpetually breaking up yet touring one more time. And I believe in the greatest tradition of the Eagles and the Who, that Eric may announce his retirement as the CEO and president, but I have a hunch we're going to do it one more time, and I'm going to do my best to keep him in that chair and keep these president's reports coming. And with that said, with my thanks, my appreciation, my friendship, and my respect, I turn it over to Eric for what will not be his last president's report.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you for those kind words. You know, of your analogies, I was also expecting maybe a hockey player, Mike Bossy, Gilbert Perreault.
Well, if you turn your head to the left and look at the door.
But to continue that analogy, this is truly a team sport, and we've got a great team here who have worked through the crisis. And Steve, thank you for your leadership and your support in general, and also during COVID. As you well know, there were so many complex issues that we had to deal with, and you were in the trenches with us. And your leadership has been invaluable, so I appreciate that, and I know the team does as well. So,
what Eric
thank
isn't
you.
saying is, in terms of people being difficult and being dropped into a situation with little experience but a lot of opinions, I take the prize, and that Eric was both able to deal with me and my personality disorders and come out of this where I believe I have a friend for life. That is a testament to Eric.
We do, and it I think it has made the agency better, and I think you've made all of us better. So I do appreciate that. I mean, it's good to always think through these issues more thoroughly, more seriously, and I can tell you that there were any number of complex issues that we had to think through in the last 2 years, and so thank you. And congratulations on your first in-person meeting and bringing us all together. Sherry, welcome to the board in person, and we look forward to having Michael join us in the fall as well. So, yes, I am still here. It's not a mirage. I plan to stay through next week to wrap up a number of things, ensure that we have a smooth transition, and really also to make sure that my successor, Pat Foy, has everything he needs to hit the ground running. And I'm excited for Pat. I think he's a great selection. I've known Pat for a long time. Incredibly capable, smart, talented, knows his way around, and I think he'll be an amazing leader in addition to ESD. So this really could be my last president's report, which means the last meeting was my penultimate meeting. Now, that's irrelevant except for the fact that I like using the word penultimate. You never get to use that word. It's one of my favorite words, so I wanted to figure out a way to use that. Now, at my last board meeting, I had queued up some music. I am not doing that this time for two very important reasons. First of all, both Elaine Kloss and Rich Newman have told me that we don't have any more money in our budget to pay ASCAP any royalty fees. And two, and this is actually a true story, as Liz told me, that when we put the meetings online, the minutes of the meeting online. YouTube pulled it down because they were concerned that there were infringements on music licenses, so it came down. So who would have thought? But in all seriousness, I said a number of things in my parting remarks last time. I just want to repeat two things. One, it has been a total honor to serve the governor and the people of New York. It's been a privilege from day one to be in this seat and to work with everybody at this agency. And two, I've been incredibly appreciative of Chairman Steve Cohen's making this transition so easy and so seamless, and I very much appreciate that. And as I said up front, I've enjoyed our working relationship and look forward to continuing on the board with you. And then, as I've said before as well, I think the work of this agency continues to have great impact on New York State, and that's thanks to the tireless public service efforts by everyone here, which is really, truly a dedicated team. It's been a privilege, and I do look forward to continuing my involvement on the board. And now, just a few points. It's nice to actually get back to normal business, to sort of report that this agency now is truly working on making New York State stronger, rebuilding and renewing, in the words of the governor. Just 4 items that we worked on in the last month. And as you can see, it really gives you a sense of how this agency is back, thinking about all of the good work that needs to get done. So in no particular order, last month in Western New York, the Lieutenant Governor attended the ribbon cutting for a new mixed-use building at 1585 Hurdle Avenue in North Buffalo. This $7 million project redeveloped a brownfield into affordable housing and retail space in the heart of the Hurdle Avenue Business District, and was supported by $500,000 through the Better Buffalo Fund. 2, in Finger Lakes, the governor's office announced that 2 previous participants of the state-funded Luminate New York competition have committed to creating nearly 120 jobs in the city of Rochester's downtown innovation zone. This complements the 100 jobs already created by companies in the Luminate portfolio, and is further validation of state investments in advanced technologies that are really generating dividends. And we're seeing that all over the state. And we're seeing as well many of the companies coming out of our New York Venture Fund doing the same. 3, a little closer to the city in Brooklyn, Governor Cuomo announced the winning proposal to develop the western portion of the Kingsborough Psychiatric Center campus. The winning proposal was selected through a competitive RFP process and will include 900 affordable homes, ample public green space, a greenhouse, areas for urban farming, and dedicated space for community empowerment programs. This is part of the governor's $1.4 billion Vital Brooklyn initiative and was overseen by both ESD, our real estate team, and the state offices of homes and community renewal. So another important project. And then lastly, to support tourism, which, as we know, has been devastated through COVID, and it's very important that we continue to invest in our assets, and we've done a tremendous amount of marketing. But in the Mid-Hudson region, I actually had the privilege to join the governor for the full opening of the Legoland New York theme park as part of the Legoland New York Resort. This project has been a long time in the making. It was great to be there. This is the first new major theme park in the Northeast in more than 4 decades. And so we are hopeful that that'll have a tremendous impact on the state economy. Additionally, I'm excited about some of the upcoming announcements and programs. And these are all, as Chairman Cohen pointed out, they're all indicative of our commitment to seeing the revitalization of our economy in this post-COVID economic recovery period. I'll stop there. I'll just say that really, as we have gotten through this pandemic, it's exciting to see how much is going on across the state, from Niagara Falls to Montauk Point. We are witnessing in real time how parts of the state's economy are truly bouncing back, and I remain optimistic that the rest will follow. I have complete faith in this agency, in this administration, from the governor to Chairman Cohen and incoming President and CEO Pat Foy. And I wish Pat the best of luck and success going forward. And I'm confident with the work of this dedicated team, the work here will continue unabated. In fact, I think even better, quite frankly, with Pat's leadership. So thank you.
Our legal department has asked me to make the following statement. Eric's remarks, which will appear online, are appearing with the express written permission of Eric. Thank you, Eric, and I will just remind you that I'm glad that you have plans to give up this position, and I will remind you that I think the old saying is that plans are what life gets in the way of, and we'll see how that goes for you. With that, thank you again, and I think we now turn to Pravina. Are you on the line, Pravina?
Yes, I'm on the line. Thank you very much.
And I think you have an update on the status of the Small Business Recovery Program. It is the first of, I believe, 2 appearances you get to make on the bill today.
I do. Again, I'm doing a double appearance, just like last time. So, very excited. On this appearance, I'll be talking about, I'm just giving you a brief update of the New York State COVID-19 Small Business Pandemic Recovery Grant, also affectionately known as the $800 million grant program. We have over 70,000 applications. We are still taking applications because we know that there are still businesses that need time to get the information in. So we have 70,000 applicants. We are looking to see to verify requests. As you can imagine, people, when they're in a grant program, decide to put the maximum amount even if they're not qualified for it. So we're looking through that and looking through the applications. We've selected over 10,000 and notified 10,000 small business applicants that they are being put through the validation and verification process. The process is twofold. As you know, we requested several documents, including the IRS tax returns. We just need to make sure that they're full and complete. And then also we're doing validation checks to minimize fraud and also to look for duplicate applications. Some people got very excited and applied more than once. So we're only taking one application per business. So we're doing all that. Things are going on track. One of the things we are using our TA, our technical assistance providers, for is to help small businesses with the documentation. Since we focused on micro and towards the smaller scale businesses, some of them need additional help in just getting the right documentation uploaded. And we've been using our TA partners to help with that. So now the push is both from our third-party vendor, Lendistry, as well as our TA partners, to reach out to applicants to make sure that they have all their documents in place, that they've uploaded them correctly so that they can smoothly move along the process. But we are looking at applications and making awards. But it's taking a little bit more time because we have some documentation issues. But we're on track, and we'll continue to accept applications in the next few weeks and then make a decision when we should pause the program. That's it for me on this subject.
I think, Hilda, you have a
Happy to
question?
take any questions.
Yes. So which parts of the state do you think are applying for these grants? Do you have any idea?
Yeah.
Is it New York City?
Yes, we do. Sorry, I'm sorry, I can't see you. So yes, we do. We've been getting applications throughout the state and every county. New York City isn't over-indexing as everyone feared in the beginning. They are actually getting their proportionate geographic share. Everything's in line. So we've got businesses from Western New York, Finger Lakes, even the North Country, Mohawk Valley. Every county has at least, some counties have numerous, but every county in the state has applications, and every region has applications towards their proportionality. So New York City isn't dominating the applicants.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Pravina, you and I spoke a few days ago about fraud detection and prevention. I think there's a lot of concern these days about, given the amount of funding that is being made available throughout the country for these kind of programs. And I don't expect you to address it today, but I think it would be helpful at the next meeting, at your presentation, if you could just take 5 minutes or so as part of the update to talk about that, and to talk about how we're ensuring that the money is going to the appropriate recipients, as opposed to people who perhaps are trying to exploit a crisis to their benefit.
One last question.
Sure.
If you'd like,
Uh,
sure, Hilda, I was gonna say,
Go ahead.
no, I said if you want, I can address that now, but I'm gonna address Hilda's question first.
Yeah, let's hear what Hilda has to say, and then you can
No.
address it.
So what type of businesses have been applying for the grants?
All sorts of businesses, from personal care services to childcare. We have fruit vendors. We have accountants and legal firms, manufacturing companies, all types of businesses. There isn't, it was industry neutral except for the landlords and those who received small business, the restaurant revitalization. So we've seen a cross sector of different businesses. So it's not, it's been, various industries. From what you think, dry cleaners, we've seen quite a few dry cleaners as well, and retail store establishments.
Thank you.
And Pravina, you want to talk about the fraud detection and prevention?
Yeah, so as part of this, the reason the documentation is so critical is it's part of the fraud protection, as well as to verify the amounts to make sure the right people are getting money. So as you know, we request tax returns. We also request a transcript, them giving us access to ask the IRS for a transcript, which means that as awardees, not that we would get it for all 70,000, but as people are going through the validation and verification process, we do request that transcript as a secondary check, just to make sure what we've been given is what the IRS has also been given. We do bank validations as well to make sure the bank accounts are legitimate and that they've been, properly set up. And we also look at different searches on the businesses in the background when they provide their information to make sure there are no outstanding liens or bankruptcy proceedings. And then we also ask for different information about the business location, just so like the lease and the utility, and it's all on our website. It's to do all that triangulation of verification for that business owner to make sure that they are who they say they are, and we have proof that that's the person and that's the business location. And on top of that, Lendistry itself is a community development financial institution, so they have different formulas to look at applicants, because they do that as part of their normal lending application. So if they see something that seems odd, they will ask for more information, just so that we can make sure it is really the person and someone isn't trying to either defraud the program or use someone else's identity. And they also have a very good cyber security team, because you've got what I always say, sophisticated criminals and not so sophisticated. And the sophisticated criminals will actually flood the system to see if they can break it and do other tactics. So they have that protection as well. So they've been working with us to ensure that we minimize fraud as much as possible by really looking to make sure the applicant is the applicant, and then using that documentation we requested to ensure that the business is still operational and working.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Any further questions, comments? If not, Pravina, I will tell you thank you, but don't go far, because we're going to be back to you shortly. And we now proceed on to our project items, and I'll ask Glendon McCleary, our Vice President, our Vice President and Director of Loans and Grants, to present a summary of those projects. Glenn, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Chairman Cohen, and good morning to the directors. The directors will be requested to consider 9 projects totaling $25,092,525 in grants. The projects include 6 regional council awards and 3 discretionary awards. The projects will take place in the Central New York, Mohawk Valley, North Country, and New York City regions. leverage over $131 million of additional investment, retain 3,534 jobs, and create 210 jobs in the state. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. And as I understand it, our first presentation, which is 2/3 of the presentations related to these projects, come from Jim Fail. So, Jim, you have the floor, and good luck. I think you are the bulk of our meeting.
Well, I apologize for that. Chairman, I just was curious, did you want to vote after each project that I present, or just do it all at the end?
This is the beauty of now being off of Zoom and in person. I'm not going to tell you which director, but one of our commissioners has indicated to me we are voting at the end. We have to vote on each one individually, but we will take them all at the end, and I am adopting the wise counsel of one of our present commissioners.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So the first project the directors are going to be asked to approve is a $1.6 million grant to Gen West Associates, who is a real estate holding company for Courier Plastics. This is a $16.4 million project, and the project involved the construction of a 91,690 square foot manufacturing facility. It should be noted that this was a Round 9 priority project, and that John Courier, who is the owner of Courier Plastics, is a council member, but he did recuse himself and did not participate in any of the discussion. The project is slated to be completed in April 2023. The reason the board is reviewing this today is that the company is pursuing new market tax credits, and as a result, the banks that are involved in that require that there's an actual GDA in place to basically ensure that the funding will be there. And this project will lead to an additional 32 hires. The next project that I will be presenting is New York All Season Ingredients. This was a Round 8 priority project from the Regional Council. The board will be asked to approve a $430,000 grant on a $2.5 million project. This was to construct a 16,500 square foot warehousing building, as well as purchase some M&E. The project will result in 10 new hires, and actually has exceeded that already, and the project is completed. The next project is a grant to Onondaga County to renovate its AAA baseball stadium called NBT Stadium. Recently, our old AAA affiliate, the Washington Nationals, ended its contract, and as we were looking for, the governor was looking for a new team, he courted the New York Mets, and as a result, the New York Mets indicated that there were some substantial upgrades needed to the ballpark in order to be able to commit to a 25-year lease. So this is a $12.5 million grant to help go towards a $25 million project to do a series of upgrades to the stadium. And the New York Mets have now been playing at our stadium for a couple of years. And the build-out of all these upgrades was completed in April of 2021. The next project is a URI project. Back in 2016 to Crouse Health Hospital. This is a $17.25 million project. And the award is $950,000 to help build a substance abuse center in downtown Syracuse. As with many communities, that there's a serious substance abuse issue in our area, so this was a kind of a community-focused investment to try to help with those types of people. This job will result in 18 new hires, and the project has also been completed earlier this year. The next project is 611 Bay Street. This also was a Round 9 project up in Fulton, New York, which is about 40 minutes north of Syracuse. This was the construction of a 9,000 square foot warehousing and office space, which resulted in the redevelopment of the old Nestle chocolate manufacturing facility, which closed down in the late 90s. And has been vacant for many, many years, and this is the start of kind of the redevelopment of that site, and hopefully will lead to further investments. The board is being asked to approve a $282,000 grant on a $1.3 million project. The project was completed in June of 2020. And my last project is for Tessie Plastics Corporation. So the board will be asked to approve a $2 million grant on a $23.6 million project, which was involved a 100,000 square foot expansion to construct a series of clean rooms that they need. They are a plastic injection molding company, and they do a lot of products for the medical industry, so they needed this clean room. This was a Round 9 project, and it did result in 150 new employees, and it was completed September of 2020. And that is the last of my presentations.
All six. When I was a kid, there was a movie, I think it was called With Six You Get Egg Rolls. So I think the next time we see you, we'll get you some egg rolls. Let's take them in order for voting purposes. The first is the Gen West item. All in favor?
Well, can I?
Oh, yeah, any questions? Of course, I'm sorry.
Yeah. My question is a rather broad one, and you may have heard me ask after other projects about how many jobs we're getting out of this. I think of myself as the voice of the people of the state of New York who don't understand economics or financing or anything else, but who have questions that immediately come to mind. And I'm a baseball fan, and so I'm interested in stadium renovations. What do we get out of investing $12.5 million in a stadium? I know we're getting a 25-year commitment from a baseball team to continue to play in Syracuse. But it's a broad question, I think, that goes to several of these. We're making very substantial investments and maybe getting a handful of jobs in return. But I know enough about what a stadium can do for a city. It can produce, renovate downtown or something along those lines. What are we getting out of this stadium renovation that I can understand and explain to people in my neighborhood?
So, Jim, you want to take that, or you want me and Eric to address it? How's best to handle it?
Well, I mean, I can start, and then you certainly can add any additional comments you feel are appropriate. I think initially the stadium is an older stadium, so there was, it's a stadium that was in somewhat disrepair, didn't have a lot of the amenities that many of these national baseball league or teams want nowadays. Obviously, there's having a team like the New York Mets with its name recognition and being the New York State team, really does become an attraction for crowds to come. And people travel from, 40, 50 miles away, 60 miles away to come and, experience the game. And so, there's going to be, there's all the sales tax revenue that's associated with, the concessions and the tickets and, and all, those types of, costs that people will spend when they come to the facility. And then there's, the occasional where they have a a major league player that's rehabbing and that then comes to the stadium to, for a game or two while it's through its rehab. And typically when that happens, the stadium's full packed, with people just because of the stardom of the player that's there. So, I think those are, generally some of the benefits that get with this type of investment.
Yeah, let me speak to some of it as well, which is, and I really have 3 points. One is, especially with these kind of, what we think of as entertainments, the reality is they are the kinds of businesses that have a tremendous multiplier effect. So that unlike a lot of the businesses that we're used to be dealing with, you attract a baseball stadium and a baseball team. It's not just the immediate jobs that you're creating, first of all, the construction jobs, and then the jobs of the people who are employed. But as Jim alluded to, it's all of those secondary jobs that surround the stadium. Everything from the sales related to garb and paraphernalia related to the team, the people who are coming for the day and dining out either before or after the game, the other activities that support the baseball team in the area. And so, my view has always been that with respect to those kind of entertainments, especially professional sports, which has the added benefit of really creating a sense of, we talk about placemaking, a sense of identity for a community, a sense that there is a cohesiveness to that particular town or city, there is a great benefit. The second point is, especially with Major League Baseball right now, the world has gotten in the last 3 years, for those who follow this, incredibly competitive, in part because Major League Baseball has decided to change the model with respect to farm teams. So suddenly there are far fewer farm teams. This has become a real issue in Staten Island, where the Yankees had, I'm not even sure what the status is, they had a farm team. Brooklyn, where the Mets have another team. But one of the interesting things about New York State is, with respect to those farm teams or affiliates, both Major League Baseball and the NHL, oddly enough, had a real presence. And with Major League Baseball, that's getting pulled back. So our ability to support those teams and those operations feeds back to that first point. The third point I'll make, which is the one I've made before, I appreciate the question. I think it's the right question. We're in a funny, as a board, in a funny position. We can ask these questions, but many of these projects we're looking at the back end rather than the front end to make sure we're comfortable with them to release the funds that have been committed. One of the things you're going to be seeing beginning next week, and I was going to talk about this at the end of the meeting because we had a governance committee meeting, but one of the things we're going to start to do is get the board to weigh in on these things up front before these things go forward. Now, what's nice about most of these projects, in fact, I think it's all of them because I've looked at them carefully, is I think these are all things the board can support, and especially, when it comes to the NBT Stadium in Syracuse, again, I agree with the staff's view that this is a very wise use of our resources in terms of the importance of these kind of teams in having serious, lasting implications for the economy.
And I just want to add, if I may, before you, and just sort of reiterate what both Jim and Steve said. I mean, our mission as an agency is fairly broad, and we look at it as both sort of the work, live, play aspect. And you're absolutely right to ask the jobs and the benefits, and we do that. We make the analysis. We look in all of these cases how jobs create, and then the overall both direct and indirect benefits to the community. We're also in the business of placemaking, and this adds to the whole notion of creating a community, of bringing in, as Steve said, we're bringing people to the area, they're spending, but we're also adding to the vibrancy of the local community.
Yeah, I'm the guy that pushed the downtown revitalization initiative that is now part of our economic development efforts. But I think my question is broader. It would make it easier for me if someone were to make a projection as to the kind of economic impact an investment, and I just didn't want to pick on baseball, but I
Yeah.
did. Is there some way, I know some of it is intangible, but is there a way of somebody saying, and the impact on the restaurant industry is this, jobs are probably going to be this. It would make it much easier for me to be able to feel comfortable about voting for them.
And so the answer is 90% of the time, the answer is yes. That other 10% are more things that are intangible. And I'll tell you, and look, we've been having a robust conversation about this for the last 3 or 4 months, which is leading to, my desire to get the board on the front end of some of this rather than the back end. And if you think about the work that this agency does, and I'll probably say more than I should, but as the lawyers at the end of the table begin to cringe, but I began this meeting by saying question everything, and I appreciate the question. There's a portion of the work that this agency does that is dictated by legislative action and approval by the governor's office. To me, we have very little to add there. We're not going to question the judgment of the elected officials of the state of New York. There's a portion of what we do, and we saw an example of it earlier today, which is life sciences, where I think the board's best and highest role is to select people and bless policies that give things to true experts and professionals who then exercise their judgment, and we keep track of it. And then there's the portion, and these items fall within that portion, where we are relying upon, whether it's the expertise and insights of the regional economic development councils, working with ESD staff or ESD staff, where we are relying upon their judgment, and I think we're entitled to understand what that judgment is based upon. And I think one of the things we're going to be seeing in the future, we have the right to ask for it any time, but I'd like to see, again, on the front end, what that analysis is that is going on. And by the way, it is absolutely taking place. We have one of the great experts in this area, Jeff Januszewski, who works with his team to do an analysis of both what we think this is going to mean in terms of job creation, but also in revenue generation, not just for the state itself, but for the localities. And I think more of that coming to the board is going to make this board both feel more comfortable, but I also think it gets out of the board more input into how best to serve these needs. But it is all there, and to the extent you want more information, I think on most of these items, if it's helpful to put some of them off for a month to get more information, we can.
I'm not asking that.
Okay,
Mine is a much broader question, and I think you've answered it.
great.
And I think going forward, I will probably feel a lot more comfortable on some of these projects.
I think you will be happy with some of the governance changes that, by the way, are discretionary. I'm looking at the lawyers, and I'm now going to watch them instead of cringing, nod up and down. They're discretionary. We don't have to do it this way, but I think it's really a question of what are the best practices post-COVID. Liz is nodding. I feel better about myself. Sherry, you have something to add?
So the only thing I might add here that speaks to this point is it might be useful as a new board member to get a sense of how the staff does the benefit cost and revenue projection estimates, just so that we have a sense of what goes into that. And then, they present it each time, it sort of has the totals here, but maybe if we had a better sense of, if they did a presentation even on just this is how we do it, that might be really helpful.
Having been the recipient of that very presentation about a month and a half ago, thanks
sorry.
to Eric. No, it
Apologize.
was before you were here.
Yeah.
And by the way, I asked the
Oral.
same thing.
Yeah.
And Kevin and Eric, working with Jeff, put together, it was about an hour-long presentation.
So maybe it's on video and I can watch it.
If only. But it doesn't matter because we can do it for you on Zoom. We will do it in the next 30 days or so. I'm looking for Kevin to see if he's shaking his head, no. But he's shaking his head, yes. And so why don't we offer that up to every board member who's interested. I don't mean to impose upon Kevin and Jeff, but I'm imposing on them. And so, and by the way, it really was, for me, I got a degree of clarity that I had not had. The clouds began to lift. The bad news for them is the more you know, the more you ask, but that's okay too.
That's our job.
But you'll see that we analyze both the direct fiscal benefits statewide and then in the region, and we look at the indirect benefits both statewide and in the region. So
I mean, it's all here, so
Yeah.
it might just be, though, that there might be other inputs that we want to see or something. I
We have a
mean,
great, we have a
all
great
doable.
team that does a lot of
Yeah.
benefit cost analysis. We use a REMI modeling for it, so we can definitely get into that. But to Steve's point, we don't do it for every project because sometimes it becomes very speculative, and then you start
Right,
producing
no,
data.
I understand that the sports teams are very hard to do in
Yeah.
that kind of analysis.
Yeah, and look, it's the sports teams, and there are certain things, again, where there are legislative or
Yeah.
gubernatorial initiatives, where we're being asked to make sure that their judgment is not wrong. We're not being asked,
Right.
if we were left to our own devices, would we generate this project? And I have, tremendous respect for what the legislature and the governor does through that process. To me, what's interesting and where we add value is what I think of as the discretionary decisions versus the programmatic decisions that are being made by this agency. And at every turn, I have been impressed when you really open the trunk, open up the hood and really look to see what's under. You always feel better, but I think it's a great process to go through. And the reality is the whole point of having this board is so that we have people with a diverse viewpoint, diverse experiences, who are able to ask questions and help inform the decision-making process. So, it should all be welcomed, especially given the world we're living in today, where I think the decisions this agency makes over the next 12 months are going to be critical to what the economy of this state looks like over the next decade. Any other questions? If not, we've got the Gym 6 that need to be voted on. Any other questions, comments, criticisms, concerns? Let's then vote first on Gen West. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? The Gen West is approved. All Seasons Ingredients expansion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's approved. The beloved Onondaga County NBT Stadium renovation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's approved. The Krause Hospital Chemical Dependency Treatment Facility. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? That one is approved. I've lost track of even where we are now, because there are so many. I think we are now up to the 611 Fay Street.
611.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? It's approved. And then the Tessie Plastic Capital Project? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? That is approved. Jim, thank you. You have run the gauntlet. You're entitled to a 15-minute break, a cup of coffee, and egg rolls in the future. Thanks a lot. I think we now turn to Mike Reese.
Good morning, directors. This morning I'm asking the directors to approve a grant of up to $830,525 from the Regional Council Capital Fund to the County of Oneida to be used for a portion of the cost of modernization of the Oneida County wastewater treatment plant. This incentive was accepted by Oneida County in July 2016. Oneida County applied for ESD funding during round 5 of the Regional Council Consolidated Funding Application as part of the Mohawk Valley's Regional Sustainability Plan to upgrade the wastewater treatment facility, including the construction of 2 anaerobic digesters. These improvements will provide a more sustainable process for handling solids at the plant and increase the ability to recover energy to keep user rates low to encourage future development. While no direct jobs were created with this project, the companies located in Oneida County require wastewater treatment to sustain and grow their operations. The total budget for this project was $52,648,887, and the project was completed in January of 2019 and is consistent with the Mohawk Valley REDC's regional goal to make key investments to improve critical infrastructure assets and promote sustainability. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
So, Mike, just to put a fine point on it, because we're now actually beginning to discuss sort of the nature of some of these projects. As I understand it, this is sort of the classic bottom-up example of the region having a need. The business is saying, for us to be sustainable in this area, this is something that's important to us, even though it may not generate jobs directly. It's important to the economy overall, right?
Yes, this is a critical piece of our infrastructure that helps us with our economic and industrial development here in Oneida County in the Mohawk Valley.
Great. And any other questions, comments? In which case, hearing none, I will ask to vote on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Approved. I now turn to the North Country and Steve Hunt. Steve, you there?
Yes, good morning, directors. I'm presenting one project from the North Country this morning. We're seeking board authorization to make an upstate revitalization initiative grant of $4.5 million to Saranac Lake Civic Center to be used for a portion of a $6 million construction and renovation project that will upgrade their facility and preparation, among other benefits, to host the 2023 Winter World University Games curling events. These upgrades include exterior and interior renovations, including structural reinforcement, the addition of a new lobby space, additional locker room, storage space, electrical, plumbing, heating, and mechanical upgrades, and refrigeration and HVAC improvements necessary to make hosting the world-class event possible. While Lake Placid it will be the base for the 2023 Winter University Games, other communities like Saranac Lake will host competitive events. Thus, economic impact is expected to be more regional in nature. And in addition, these improvements will allow the Civic Center to attract additional ice events in the region, specifically, again, in Saranac Lake, increasing tourism spending in the region. The project is in alignment with the North Country Regional Economic Development Council's Upstate Revitalization Initiative Plan and the Council's strategy to strengthen the region's global sports brand by attracting international sporting events that would stimulate private investment and job growth and spark the refurbishment of sports and hospitality facilities in the North Country. It's also consistent with Governor Cuomo's Executive Order 185, reflecting the state's support of the World University Games. The construction project will begin this summer, and completion is expected by October of 2022.
Let me say something about this, because I happen to have visited and watched sporting events at the Saranac Lake Civic Center. About a decade ago, maybe a little less, it was already a facility that was very much in need of renovation. I'm sure Sherry has been there as well. One of the things that facility is used for, it's going to be critical to the World University Games, but also to the extent there's tournament play in hockey up in Lake Placid, that is the go-to rink for spillover games. And there is a tremendous amount of activity. It's a short drive from downtown Lake Placid. And for Lake Placid to be able to attract those kind of events, you need more rinks than you have, and you need them to be in good repair. In fact, Steve, I probably shouldn't mention this on this call, but I really would love to talk more about whether or not there's more that we can do to really build up that sort of ice sport economy in and around Lake Placid. I obviously have a personal interest. I'm not the only one sitting around the table that has experience and an interest in that, but it has always struck me that Lake Placid has the capacity to be the ice hockey capital, maybe even the curling capital of the Northeast. And I want to make sure that we're doing enough to make that happen. It is an odd series of institutes and organizations that exist in Lake Placid, everything from the Herb Brooks Arena to the Saranac Lake facility to Can-Am, which is a Canadian organization, but they run tournaments and camps. And you also have the Northwood School, which is a powerhouse hockey prep school and sports prep school for winter sports. So, again, this is, I think, the very kind of investment where it may not produce the job numbers that some things do, but has a dramatic impact on the economy and those secondary types of economic activities, including hospitality, tourism, and the like.
I wanted to add to the conversation, go in a direction that Steve probably doesn't know where I'm going to go, but Sherry might appreciate this. That growing up in Montreal, my dad was a member of a curling league, and I could never figure out what he was doing until he took me there one day. So it's good to see that we'll be hosting curling events up north.
Curling is coming back. I think it is one of the growth sports. You know, in Brooklyn, there is now a bar and shuffleboard venue. And I've always thought, you know what? Why not curling? So, especially given the weather we're experiencing now, I would spend my day at the curling rink. Any other questions, comments, criticisms? In which case, we'll move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The Saranac Lake Civic Center proposal is accepted, adopted, and approved, and I will see you all at the curling event at the World University Games. I think we now move to the New York City region and Joe Tazewell. Joe, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. This is a request for approval of a $2 million grant to Women's Housing and Economic Development Corporation, or WEDCO, in connection with the construction of Bronx Music Hall, a new 14,000 square foot cultural and educational space that will be the permanent home of Bronx Music Heritage Center and will also include a 250-seat performance space. This project has a total cost of approximately $11.6 million and will be located in Bronx Commons, a new mixed-use development in the Melrose neighborhood of the South Bronx, which also includes 305 affordable apartments. The project was designated as a priority by the New York City Regional Council in Round 6, since it is in alignment with the Council's downtown revitalization, opportunity agenda, and workforce development strategies. WEDCO is a community development organization founded 29 years ago, whose mission is to give South Bronx residents access to all resources that create thriving neighborhoods. The Bronx Music Hall will include a flexible performance space adaptable to music, dance, theater, and film, a lobby with permanent and interactive exhibits, multi-use classrooms for rehearsal and recording in public amphitheater-style seating, and 2 adjacent plazas for outdoor performances. The facility is expected to draw 20,000 people each year to performances, classes, and events. WEDCO estimates that 67 jobs will be created as a result of the project, including 15 jobs that have been created to date. They've made the requisite investment, and construction will be completed by the end of August 2021. Because the grantee has satisfied its obligations under the incentive proposal, ESD is now recommending that directors authorize the release of the funds for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Project is approved. The release of funds is approved. I think we now turn to the at direction of calendar and Kara Longworth. Kara, are you there?
I am here, Chairman Cohen. Thank you.
Well, I hope you are prepared to talk about an ion collider, because I think about very little other than ion colliders.
Well, luckily I will be presenting the project, but thankfully we have Dr. Robert Tribble from Brookhaven National Lab, who's the Deputy Director for Science and Technology, who's also on the call. And after I finish with the business end of it, I'm sure he can answer all your questions about the ion collider, which
I will make one editorial comment. The fact that you have brought the good doctor to appear means that I will be saying nothing, because the notion that I have anything to add other than trouble and mischief is a truism, unfortunately. So I will leave it to you to handle the technical aspects as well as what we need to consider and approve today.
All right, thank you. So at the direction of grants, refer to those commitments listed in the New York State budget that have originated from the executive chamber or legislature. For these commitments, ESD is named as the agency to administer the funding, but does not select their recipients of the funding. These grants are typically presented to the board upon completion or when the need arises for disbursements to be made. This project falls into that latter. So this morning, we're asking the directors to authorize the disbursement of up to $100 million to support the approximate $2.5 billion federal investment at Brookhaven National Lab in Upton, which is in Suffolk County, to create an electron-ion collider. Brookhaven National Lab is one of 17 U.S. Department of Energy labs in the United States. BNL is a multidisciplinary research institution with more than 70 years at the forefront of scientific exploration, and it actually has 7 Nobel Prizes discovered at the site. The grantee is Brookhaven Science Associates, which is the not-for-profit corporation which is under contract with the Department of Energy to run and operate Brookhaven National Lab. Brookhaven National Lab is an important economic driver for Long Island, New York State. It employs approximately 2,500 people, and it hosts up to 5,000 visiting scientists every year from around the world. Since 2000, it's been operating the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider, where many of these jobs are located and where physicists from around the world have traveled to unlock the secrets of the universe. A few years ago, the Department of Energy announced it was planning to build an electron-ion collider at one of the 17 existing labs. To support and strengthen Brookhaven National Lab's bid for this federal investment, the state committed to contribute $100 million to the project in July of 2019, if Brookhaven was in fact chosen for this electron-ion collider. In January of 2020, the Department of Energy announced that the electron collider would in fact be built at Brookhaven National Lab. In addition to the economic impact of the federal investment and the preservation of the hundreds of jobs at the collider, this project will maintain the United States leadership in nuclear physics and accelerator science, which is crucial to our technological, economic, and national security. And it will guarantee that Brookhaven National Lab remains a world-class research facility for the next generation. We're asking the directors to approve the distribution of $100 million over the next 4 years for the design and construction of critical infrastructure, including 4 of the 14 buildings required to support the electron-ion collider. While the New York State portion will be completed over the next 4 years, the project is expected to take up to 10 years for full completion. 2033 is the expected date. So I am happy to answer any questions about that. And as I said, Dr. Tribble is on the line to answer any scientific questions you may have.
Before we turn, I just want to note that our newest board member with Sherry, Mike Rosen, has dialed in. So he's listening and is available. If there are any questions, he can ask them. My understanding is because of the rules governing the meeting, he doesn't count to a quorum, but we have a quorum, and that there's no need for him to vote. But his input is welcome, and his attendance is appreciated. Welcome, Mike. So when it comes to ion colliders, any questions?
Well, I would just welcome given that we have the board here, maybe just a very brief and using layman's terms so the good doctor can give us a sense of the benefits of the ion collider. I was there last summer, about a year ago when the announcement was done, and it's certainly very exciting. But maybe just 2 or 3 minutes of the scientific benefits that we'll see.
Yikes! What a challenge! This is Bob Tribble.
You see, if you weren't here, I would do it, and everybody would walk away saying, wow, and as long as they spoke to nobody who had actual knowledge, it would really be persuasive. But of course, I would have made it all up.
Just to put it into context, for the last roughly 100 years, scientists have ultimately figured out how the atom works, how the electrons work around the nucleus of an atom, and what's come of that? Essentially all the technology that we use today. If you put it in context, it's absolutely mind-boggling what has come from that understanding. So what we're doing next is digging down one layer below what the electrons do and trying to figure out really how the particles that make up the nucleus work and how they get produced and how they get held together. And it's difficult to tell you what will come weekend, except that we are confident that that new knowledge will open up many, many new things that we can use it to develop. And in my particular case, I'm extremely interested in understanding that strong force, because I think it'll hold a key to a lot of what we don't understand about the world around us. And in particular, what I'm looking at are very high density objects that can't have material like we are used to seeing on Earth in them, like black holes, like neutron stars. And because we don't understand them, I don't think we yet have a very good understanding of our universe in play. So the Electron Ion Collider is the object that can give us that information and open up a whole new set of areas that we can pursue once we understand better what is holding the particles together that make us all up.
Kara, the one other thing that I think would be helpful, and you and I talked about it at length the other day, is a discussion of what will surround the campus and the ability to attract and retain those kind of enterprises that are going to benefit from the use of the Ion Collider.
Certainly. The Ion Collider is just one of the amazing tools that's at Brookhaven National Lab. There's also the National Synchrotron Light Source, the Center for Functional Nanomaterials, and other that attract scientists from all over the world. I mean, 5,000 scientists from around the world come here, and a lot of other institutions have space at the Light Source. A lot of universities and all the Ivy League schools are involved at this facility as well. So one of the things that we're working with the lab, they have 5,000 acres in Upton, and we're working with them for several years, and soon you'll see some projects coming through the regional council for something we're calling Discovery Park. They want to build with the public-private partnerships. They're outbidding to developers as we speak to develop outside the fence, because this is a fenced-in facility, but just outside the fence where we can create hotels and office space and other research facilities where some of those visiting scientists and those institutions that do work in the lab on these machines can actually set up and maybe hopefully stay and really work at commercializing some of the research that's coming out of the facility.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what is interesting and important is we talk a lot about the concept of creating economic ecosystems, and here is a great example where sort of at the center is sort of the most cutting edge scientific activities, and what should grow up around it and will grow up around it are all sorts of other businesses, other research centers that will take advantage of it. And this is, to me, the very area where the focus and the attention that we pay by helping this along will pay dividends throughout the economy, and both in terms of economic development, but also the scientific discovery. I mean, this is,
Cool.
We go from particle physics to being able to serve lunches to people who are researching particle physics, and all of it really is what we're talking about. So, unless there are any other questions or comments, we can move to a vote on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Kara. Very exciting stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we turn to another item that we discussed earlier, which is the New York Venture Investment. Momo, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, directors. You're being asked to approve $1 million investment in a Series A extension SAFE into the company Block Power. The company has previously received $1 million investment from New York Ventures in January 2020, so about a year and a half ago. Block Power is a minority-led software platform that uses machine learning, Internet of Things data, and structured finance to retrofit energy-wasting buildings into renewable energy and energy-efficient buildings at scale, in underserved market segments. Buildings represent about 30% of U.S. greenhouse gases, and about 5 million mid-sized commercial and residential buildings in America's urban core are energy-wasting health hazards. They waste about over 100 billion per year of energy, strain our utility grids, and make people sick through lead and indoor air pollution. Currently, building retrofits are expensive and very difficult to scale because it requires deploying engineers on site where they manually collect and analyze environmental data. It is a costly process that takes many weeks and often generates inaccurate results. So through installation of IoT sensors and combining the data with machine learning, Block Power has built a technology platform with proprietary targeting algorithms to produce accurate assessment and project management. Its software and financing facilities will provide low-income areas workforce development opportunities with green new jobs, construction jobs, and access to building retrofit at scale to reduce energy bills and achieve 2 to 7% reduction in U.S. greenhouse gas emissions in the next 2 to 3 years at about 10 to 50% of the traditional cost. As part of the due diligence process, New York Ventures team and an external investment advisory committee have evaluated the company's business plan and growth prospects, as well as the terms of the investment. And as a result of that analysis, we both agree that the market opportunity and growth potential offered by Block Power warrants an investment by the fund, and we recommend its approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Just because it actually helps inform a discussion that we're going to have probably at the next board meeting, just to sort of explain how this comes to the board, and you alluded to it. It's not just an investment, as I understand it, as a co-investment, where the venture fund is basically relying upon the expertise you represent and the people that ESD represent, working with your advisory committee and basically saying, this is a worthwhile investment that we're doing with others, taking what I gather will be a very small minority position in this opportunity. And that's what the venture fund does.
Yes, that's accurate. And just making a quick comment on that. So yes, we're a co-investor. Majority of the investment is provided by private venture investors, and for this particular round, it's actually led by Kapor Capital, which is one of the most well-known and longest-running impact investors in this country. They have made over 260 investments with 81 exits. So we go into rounds with co-investors that have a lot of experience leading these kind of deals.
Yeah, and I mention that because, and Eric and I have talked a lot about this, we have a one-size-fits-all right now delegation of authority to members of the senior staff to commit the agency. And it strikes me that we're all better served, this also goes to the conversation we had earlier, that we need a variable approach, that on something like this, it can come to the board. The board is inevitably going to approve something like this, but we're really relying upon the expertise of the advisory committee and the leadership here that works with that advisory committee in instances in which inevitably we are always a minority and we're always a co-investor, often always relying upon some other market professional that has made the choice. And it strikes me that as we look at this, the notion that we would not raise the delegation of authority to give greater discretion and not to have to wait to come to the board on this is something that is compelling. We're going to talk about it in the next month or two, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity to point out that this is one of those exact areas that I've been talking to Eric and Kevin, Liz and Felice about to try to figure out how best to move to a world that has a little more flexibility. So with that said, unless there are any other questions, we'll move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It is approved. Thank you. Thanks, Momo. I believe we are back to Pravina, who has been anxiously awaiting.
Yes, I'm back. Thank you very much, Chair Cohen and the Board of Directors. I'm here to present for the Community Development Financial Institution CDFI Fund. We are requesting the directors to approve a one-year grant of totaling of $4.9 million to be dispersed to 31 federally certified community development financial institutions. The grants will all be a range of $75,000 to $200,000, but not to exceed $200,000. Just for background, as part of the governor's 2020 State of the State address, he provided a $25 million new seed fund for over 5 years to go to community development financial institutions, CDFIs, provide better banking services and also credit products. 25% of New York State's households don't have access to bank accounts and rely on costly banking services like paycheck stores and other avenues of financing. This program really is to work with community development financial institutions, which really help in these distressed communities to be able to provide banking services as well as financial inclusion and financial literacy education so that they can start building their wealth. Unlike our normal CDFI assistance programs, which only looks at small business banking, this looks at both residential, small business, and housing. So these CDFIs are slightly different from the ones that we normally present earlier this year for the CDFI assistance program. So we did a competitive request for applications. We received 37 submissions and 31 hit all the criteria, and will be working with us to provide these services across the state. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments? If not, we will move to a vote. All in favor? Oh, you have a question?
No, I have a comment. I think that I have to recuse myself from this one because I am in the board of SCDF.
Okay, so Liz, you've got that?
Yep.
Okay, one commissioner has recused herself, and we will now turn to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Pravina. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Doug Carr, are you available to talk to us about the Moynihan Station TIFIA amendment, which is nothing but good news?
Yes, I am. Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Cohen, President Gertler, and members of the board. I am Douglas Carr, and this morning I am presenting a proposed board item for the Moynihan Civic and Land Use Improvement Project. This item is an update to a previous related authorization, which was presented and approved at the May board meeting of this year, which was the request to authorize a new TIFIA, stands for Transportation Infrastructure Financing and Innovation Act, loan from the United States Department of Transportation to borrow up to $586 million to refinance the original 2017 TIFIA loan of $526 million. This item is an update to that previous authorization based on improved interest rate conditions in the 30-year Treasury rate since the last presentation back in May. As previously presented, the proposed refinancing will be utilized in the financing and reimbursement of TIFIA eligible project costs and will seek to capitalize on the improved interest rates, resulting in a more efficient financing structure. This will not impact total project debt service, and there are no material changes to any of the existing loan terms. Under this revised authorization, ESD may be able to borrow funds from USDOT of up to $633 million to be used to refinance and replace the original 2017 TIFIA loan. The final amount is subject to the 30-year Treasury rate in effect at the time of closing. This proposed authorization is consistent with the project's original borrowing capacity based on predetermined total eligible project costs, and again will have no increase on total project debt service. The directors are requested to authorize the increased loan amount, and I'm happy to entertain any questions regarding this updated board item.
Any questions, comments? It sounds like a great opportunity, and great work by the folks who manage the finances of this. We'll move it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
No opposition? It's approved. Thank you, Douglas.
Thank
I
you.
believe we now move to the ultimate cleanup hitter, Kevin Eunice.
Just to not show up Jim Fail, I'm only presenting 5 items for your consideration.
By the way, we would have pulled one of the items if you had 6.
I had 7, but
Then we'd pull them
seemed
both.
overkill. Thank you, folks. Good morning, Kevin Eunice. We have 5 administrative items for your consideration. Directors are being asked to approve extending and amending the contract with Ernst & Young Infrastructure Advisors to continue to provide financial advisory consulting services related to the Empire Station Complex project. The original contract was $600,000, and we're asking for an increase of the contract to $900,000. The second item relates to the authorizing the corporation to enter into a 5-year memorandum of understanding with the State University of New York at Buffalo to allow its University at Buffalo Regional Institute to provide ESD with strategic planning and policy development support related to the Buffalo Billion and Western New York Regional Economic Development Council efforts, and to provide $350,000 towards the first year of such services. UBRI has been providing these services since the inception of the Buffalo Billion program. We are also asking for your approval for a $1.7 million contract with the New York Apple Association under the Marketing Order Program. The New York Apple Association will be providing marketing and promotional services for the New York State Apple industry. The next item relates to a request to increase by $300,000 the environmental legal services contract with the law firm of Zive, Paget, and Reisel in connection with ESD's Brooklyn Development Center mixed-use project. Funding for this contract is fully funded by the project's conditionally designated developer. The contract limit is requested to be increased to $500,000 to cover additional and necessary work that was not contemplated in the original scope of services. And finally, we were requesting an increase of $495,000 to the legal services contract with Wilmer, Cutler, Pickering, Hale, and Dorr LLP to continue to provide advice and representation in connection with the investigation by the New York State Attorney General and with other related investigations. This amendment would bring the total contract to $995,000. And that's the last item.
Any questions or comments on any of those administrative items? If not, let's move to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? No opposition. The motion carries. Let me take just 2 minutes to just update everybody on what I've already alluded to and we've actually had the conversation about, which is the Governance Committee, newly reconstituted now under the chair of Sherry Gleed, met earlier. It was last week, actually, if my memory serves.
Monday.
No, Monday.
It was Monday.
2 meetings in a week.
I'm still in this sort of COVID mode that there are no days of the week.
There are no days of the week.
And we talked about what we've already discussed at this board meeting, which is the notion that we are going to begin a process where we are going to present to the board a reordering of how projects are brought before the board for whether they're for approval or information purposes. We'll move away from a one-size-fits-all, and the group is also looking at changing and altering the delegation of authority with respect to the ability to commit the agency so that it is not a one-size-fits-all $250,000, but rather reflective of the nature of what the commitments are, who's making the commitment, and what the expertise is. And so I'm hoping that at the next board meeting, we actually will be able to present the proposed changes for consideration by the board. To the extent people not on the governance committee, board members not on the governance committee, who have some insight or questions or concerns, your input is welcome. The easiest way is probably to go through Kevin or Liz. And I do want to note that this has been a fairly intensive process. This agency has been operating the way it's operated for probably 15, 20 years. And to ask folks to take a look and really question the way we're doing things is never an easy thing to do. And, all I can say is that Kevin and Liz and Felice and also Eric, who brings a wealth of experience, have really been extraordinary in trying to rethink and come up with not just something new, but something that is new, that is workable, and that enhances the agency. And I'm hoping next month we can all have a robust conversation, and many of the issues that were raised earlier today, for example, you'll feel like your ability to have real input will be altered for the better. So with that, any questions, comments, I'm happy to entertain now, or we can talk next month. If that's the case, I guess it is time to declare our first in-person meeting of almost 18 months at an end. It is with great regret that there is a possibility that there will no longer be an Eric Gertler President's Report going forward, although hope springs eternal, and the Eagles are still playing, even without all their members. So I will now turn to you all and ask for a vote on adjournment. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? I am somewhat opposed because I don't want to lose Eric, but I'll join in as well, and we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.